Hello, welcome to our channel. We appreciate each and every one of you. Trump has just released his national security strategy of the United States of America. Boy, that's a tongue twister, isn't it?
Say that again.
President Trump has just released his national security strategy of the United States of America.
Oh, this ought to be good.
For the first time in 5 years, we have a national security strategy for this country. The Biden administration, whose executive orders, 92% of them were just canceled because they were all fake, and nobody was arrested. Nobody was arrested for forging the president's signature. No one. That's beyond insanity. Anyway, we're going to talk about the national security strategy and many other things because we are a news source, and you are the smartest people in the world. You want the news, you want to know what's going on in the world, then you want to move on with life. So, I encourage you, if someone's sick, the first thing you reach for is natural products. This is what happens when you reach for liquid Advil, bullous pemphigoid, heart disease, swelled up heart sac. I've seen them both from liquid Advil. And it's in the literature. You can't deny it because it's in the literature. So, for example, you want to give away a good pre-Christmas present? Get your people either gymnema or cinnamon. Cinnamon they understand because cinnamon they use as a spice. Start using cinnamon from Get the Tea. It's the most effective. They want to eat a lot of pumpkin pie and ice cream during Thanksgiving or during Christmas. You take a couple of those cinnamon, and what happens with my blood sugar is rather than going through the roof, Alice, it just goes bump and keeps going. I don't have to worry about my blood getting thick because of Immunosist and C60 and all the other things we take. And Immunosist is a different company. C60 Evo is a different company. All the things we take. But first thing I do is reach for Get the Tea. Somebody's got the big C, the big A, the other big A. First thing you do is you start feeding them right with a seaweed tablet every day. Sea vegetables. So anyway, Get the Tea, 928-308-0408. Anyway, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is holding back food stamps in 21 states. If you don't get your food stamps this month, just blame your governor.
And the reason for that is that they wouldn't hand over their paper trail on who's on the rolls. Rolls.
Non-compliance of federal regulations.
They want the rolls. Who's on this system?
Because 75 to 80% of all SNAP benefits are going to illegals. And the state said, kiss my rear, right. Trump.
They're hiding it.
And the governors are not under arrest, even though Trump's been offered 300 military volunteers to arrest the governors. He's told God and he's told the military to go stuff it. He's not going to arrest those committing treason, but he is going to cut their funding. Pam Bondi is suing 20 of the 21 states. And the problem is there's going to be some left-wing nutcase judge paid off.
Yep.
To counter it.
Yep, that's exactly
And then it'll have to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it'll be a long process.
It'll be a long process. In the meantime, we saw a lot of illegals go into a hospital yesterday. So they have not cut off illegals from Medicaid. They don't intend to cut off illegals from Medicaid. We'll find out what happens. And the J6 pipe bomb suspect who put the pipe bomb, I don't know if it was the Democrat or Republican office. They're right next to each other.
Both.
Anyway, everybody saw that car pull up. Everybody saw the person look up like this. Everybody saw the police car numbers. Everybody saw the local police deliver that person. That was 4 years ago. And they 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. And they finally arrested the person. The Biden administration protected the pipe bomber. And nobody was arrested but that one person. The cops who delivered the pipe bomber were not arrested. The cars that were involved in the pipe bombing were not seized. They just arrested one person. Woohoo. Go Kash Patel. Lion, sack of horse manure. Anyway, Mike Lindell is running for governor.
Yeah!
He has challenged Tampon Tim Walz, the one who...
Tampon Tim.
Who, according to 450 welfare agents, orchestrated the theft of billions upon billions of dollars to give to terrorists around the world. He was not arrested for that, despite the witnesses, 450 witnesses against him. He was not arrested for committing treason and funding terrorists around the world. He was not arrested, so Mike Lindell's going to run against him.
Good.
We have 300 military volunteers that are willing to arrest Tampon Tim and his entire office. But Trump doesn't want to arrest. This is Trump number 4 now, because we're on Trump number 4. Refuses to arrest those committing treason. And Trump ends Biden's fuel standards. 120 years ago, we were getting 30 miles to the gallon. Now we get 20 miles to the gallon. 120 years ago, we were getting 120-mile range on electric cars. Today, we get 120-mile range on electric cars. 75 years ago, we had the Merlin V-12 and the P-51 fighter aircraft, water-powered, that Stanley Myers made, and my friend Paul Russum, his dad, took a Chevy 350 from 1972 and water-powered it through a series of screens. When I had an embassy in the Ukraine, I'm looking at a Volkswagen Polo built in 1972. It got 140 miles to the gallon. That was 55 years ago. About 10 years ago, I talked to a sergeant major in the Army. He was running around in a station wagon that got 300 miles to the gallon, but he was not allowed to take his car and bring it to the United States. He had to leave that in Europe. It was an older station wagon. He made a general mad, and suddenly he had $1 billion tax. Yeah, he owed the IRS $1 billion. The elites are nasty and mean. So are we ever going to go to water-powered cars or 150 miles to the gallon or 300 miles to the gallon cars? Yeah. Oil industry is too strong. You can't talk about how to do it. I may build one, but I'm not going to tell anybody how I build it. It's you warm the motor up with gasoline, and then you pull a lever. Volcanoes are up because of water pressure. The water gets down in there, and boom, you pull a lever, and you cut off the gas, and then you start the water. And there's a crum, and then the water works. Dr. Brown did it. So anyway, clandestine campaign. This should be the top of the news, but it's not. The elimination of freedom of speech. The defunding of those news agencies that are not funded by the Department of Defense. Way back when, I started looking at how the alternate media was funded, because we had the libtard media. They lie, they cheat, they steal. I was a paper boy. The people who refused to subscribe to the Oakland Tribune told me the Oakland Tribune lied, and they did. And they've always lied, and they're always going to continue to lie as long as they're government funded. Everything government funded lies. So, the elimination of freedom of speech and the non-Department of Defense news sites, every news site that I looked at that told somewhat the truth was funded by the Department of Defense. You have to look deep, though. They're funded by this person, which is 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 funded by this corporation here in Germany, which happens to be a corporation which is part of the Department of Defense. That kind of thing. They hide it so well. They lie so very well. The United States government supports so many lies. Anyway, it's the destruction of Zero Hedge and Breitbart and several other news agencies have been traced to Keith Starmer, the walking, talking demon, according to the Lucifer Trust. Remember, I get the letters from the devil. I know who's who in the devil's world because I get the letters from the devil. Keith Starmer is a walking, talking demon. The last prime minister, the one with the hair that looks like a madman?
Yes, that's Johnson.
Boris Johnson. We were told that isn't the original Boris Johnson because his dad told a friend of mine, that ain't my son. So they killed his son and put in a double. So Starmer's, the Lucifer Trust, the devil clearly says he's a walking, talking demon. So Keith Starmer's political machine has been destroying America. Now here in America, we have our own destructive agents. We have the FTC and the FCC and the FBI.
I'm sure there's more than that.
Yeah, the NSA, the CIA, and the Department of Defense are all destroying freedom of speech so they can have control and destroy and kill. Remember, I get the letters from the devil. I know exactly what the devil's up to. He tells you what he's up to. He's not ashamed. He wants you dead. So the FBI and CIA are conspiring to kill you. It's very simple. And Trump is paying them in the United States. But there's additional money coming from Keith Starmer in the Center for Communication of Digital Hate, and I can't believe the number of people involved in the destruction of the world. Stop Funding Fake News, SFFN, the Democrats' favorite party, funded by Keith Starmer, a walking, talking demon. You can't say it isn't, because I know who's who. The devil tells me. This is their latest newsletter. Anyway, so the clandestine campaign to destroy freedom of speech has now been exposed in a book. We'll see if Trump takes action to stop the destruction of freedom of speech. What do you think, Jana? I'll bet $1,000 right here, right now, that Trump doesn't defund the FBI, and I'll bet $1,000 here we continue to get.
Well, there's no way he's going to defend. Mm-mm.
Heck, I'm censored on his own Truth Social for telling the truth. Trump himself censors me. Who knows? Maybe he's a walking, talking demon, and maybe he wants the Air Force One crew dead, because every time I mention the Air Force One crew, I get censored. What's wrong with Air Force One? I get censored more. Maybe he wants to die. I don't know. It's insane that I would say what's wrong with Air Force One, and then he would censor me. He rides on Air Force One. He's got to either be stupid or suicidal. Either that or Susie Wiles, I call Betty Boop, keeps him out of the loop. But his crew knows who I am. Anyway, Trump's national security strategy for the United States of America. Finally, somebody put their big boy pants on and wrote something that's decent. The days of the United States propping up the entire world like Atlas, the order is over. The United States will no longer prop up the Monroe Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, where we give Europe $2 to $3 trillion a year, is over. And the U.S. Treasury merged with the Federal Reserve System. And it may be that the Federal Reserve System is not going to give the banks the money to buy the bonds in Europe. All of the European companies like Volkswagen and chemical plants are all so far in debt they can't see straight. They got to borrow more money every year just to declare a profit and pad their pockets. Well, the United States Federal Reserve System is no longer going to authorize the Federal Reserve banks to prop up the European corporation. That means all Fortune 500 companies in Europe are at risk of total collapse during the next year. Because if you've got, like Disney, say, for example, $180 billion in debt, and you've got to borrow $20 billion a year just to declare a little bit of a profit and pay the bonds off. If you can't borrow that, next year they're going to have to borrow $28 to $30 billion. The Federal Reserve System is going to have to fund the banks to buy the bonds for Disney to sell their bonds. If those bonds aren't purchased by anybody, Disney collapses in 24 hours. This push towards Satanism collapses in 24 hours because Disney goes away. That includes, I don't know about Paramount Pictures, but aren't they owned by Disney?
Something just got bought by
somebody who bought something.
Yeah, I'll tell you in a sec here.
Anyway, the bottom line is Paramount Pictures. I met their executive vice president one day at Redondo Beach. Really nice guy, Chinese guy, really nice guy. Anyway, they're under a curse because they never paid Patch Adams for his movie. They were going to build this hospital for him, and they reneged on that. So Paramount and any company connected to Paramount is under a financial curse. So says the I am that I am, who was and is to come. So any company that's been involved with Paramount Pictures is going down. They're having to sell more bonds and more bonds and more bonds. Pretty soon the whole house of cards is tumbling down. And this $2 trillion purchase of data centers, it's coming to a standstill because the power companies are going, we're tapped out, man. You build more power centers, we'll build your data centers. But until then, you ain't turning nothing on. Because if they turned on the 5 data center, Jane, in Texas, there wouldn't be any power for the public. Absolute insanity. But anyway, so Trump's national security plan says the United States is no longer going to prop up Europe. They're no longer going to buy the bonds of the European corporations that are going under. That means depression, and that always leads towards what, Jane? Depression leads to WAR.
Yep. Just to circle back to what you were asking, Netflix just is buying Warner Brothers.
Netflix
Mm-hmm.
declared a profit because, I think it declared a $2 billion profit. I could be wrong on the numbers because it sold like $20 billion in bonds. What the friggin'? That means they're $18 billion in debt.
Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery announced a $72 billion merger to consolidate Hollywood into the hands of streaming giants. So we're going into streaming giants like Netflix and not doing so many movies on site.
That's insane.
And the Hollywood actors are just up in arms.
So now, not only are they $50 billion in debt, they just picked up another $72 billion in debt. So they'll have to sell $25 billion in bonds just to declare a $2 billion profit and take $1 billion benefits for the board of directors.
Yeah.
That's beyond insanity. So the United States may stop funding all of that, and the Monroe Doctrine will, how are we doing? The Monroe Doctrine will be enforced. European and Oriental powers will get out of South America. No more Russia and Cuba, no more China and Brazil. It's going to be enforced. By the way, they've destroyed 72 boats transporting a ton of cocaine into the United States as cocaine prices go through the roof. Oh, wah, aren't you just... But they'd have to stop the people from the Drug Enforcement Agency because the guys come in a backpack into the Central Hotel in Republic, Washington, and then they take that back with the contents of the backpack down to their headquarters, and that's how the cocaine gets into the United States from Canada. It's the Drug Enforcement Agency that does it. All across the northern border, there are hotels, and there are mules that come across the border with a backpack on and dump that backpack off at midnight with the Drug Enforcement Agency. So how's Trump going to stop that? 300 military volunteers, it's the only way, but he doesn't give a rat's rip. And the EU economy is collapsing. You know that Germany's now building their chemical plants and Volkswagen is building their car production plants in China.
China, yeah. Yeah.
They're turning away from the United States. The economy, European economy, just the European economy used to be a quarter of the world's GDP.
Yeah.
Now it's something like 10%.
Yeah, they're dying.
They're turning into black Muslim nations.
Yep.
And black Muslim nations, the people don't work very hard. But that's the goal of the Jesuits. Make everybody brown-eyed because they don't work hard. We showed you that interview. Hans Kovenbach said he's Satan incarnate. The Pope said he's Lucifer incarnate. If you notice, on all Arab nations, they have the Roman laurels. If you notice on the Iranian ranks, they have the Roman laurels. If you notice in Europe, they have the Roman laurels. The laurel that the Caesar put on his head, and in 385 AD, the Pope became the emperor of the Roman Empire. So the Roman laurels are all over the Arab nations. So they're run by the Pope. And now Europe is going to end up looking like some of these African nations. And that's where it's headed. Massive stabbing, massive destruction. And Trump wants nothing to do with that. Europe has turned into a nasty, nasty, evil place because of people like Ken Starmer and Merz and the president of France, who is a walking, talking demon, whose wife was proved in the Supreme Court to be a guy.
Are you talking about Macron's wife?
Macron's
Brigitte?
wife. All you have to do is pull down the pants.
Stop it.
There's 3 sexes. Male, female, and crazy. And don't tell me crazy's not a sex, because we got 59 of them in Washington State, 59 sexes. Anyway, God bless. Thank you very much. By the way, my new sex, according to the hospital, is sarcastic.
That's your pronoun.
That's my new pronoun.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's gone insane.
Yeah.
God bless. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Or no, we'll see you Monday, maybe.